You're listening to Navid Moosa of The Mindset Movement. Good day, good people. My name is Navid Moosa. I'm your host today and always for The Mindset Movement, the podcast. I'm also founder of navidmoosa.com, where you can find modules about real estate investing, how to become the best realtor you can be, whether you're a new agent or a seasoned agent, we got you covered. We talk about foreclosures, short sales, how to interview an investor. And if you're an investor looking to get with that right real estate agent, now we have courses on how to, interview an agent. So each and every week, what we try to do here is just bring you guys information for you to be the best version of you, even if it's just a little bit better day by day. And if you don't need us, share us, right? So that's always an option. We try to have guests who bring quality, guests who bring some kind of added value to not only my life and our lives, but your lives as well. And today is no different. Today, we're joined by a friend of mine, Troy Goode of Goode Contracting. He's based out of Berks County still, or did you change? Okay. All right, cool. So Troy and I kind of reconnected in the past month or two. And I'll let him tell you about that, about how he started up a meeting, not a monthly meeting, which I like that format, actually, that it's not monthly. And Troy and I have been in the circle of networking. We've been in the circle of real estate investors, circle of contracting. So please help me welcome Troy Goode.
Thank you. Good to be here.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Right in the middle here of Thanksgiving and Christmas, and just realized there's like 10 days or 12 days left, so I better get started on my shopping, right?
Well, Taylor, I know you're busy, especially in the world of contracting, right? So, and I know you're shifting more for the real estate side, but and I want you to talk about both. Please, definitely talk about both. So first, let's go back to your roots, if you will. Okay. I know when we first met, you were strictly a contractor for the most part. You were GCing a lot of stuff. What does that look like now with the prices of material and just with the scarcity of material?
Right. So it's interesting you asked that too, because in the last week I talked with some owners of lumber yards and some places we buy. I like to keep in touch with the supply, right, and the cost, because that's huge when it comes to contracting and when it comes to flipping and rentals, right? And where we're at right now, it's tough. Like I can give, like I gave somebody a price on a rubber roof, and at the time they asked me for the price, they said, "Are there any supplies that you're going to have potentially have trouble getting?" And I called my suppliers and asked them before I gave them the price, and they said, "We have all that now." Well, as soon as I got the job, I went to call for the price, get the one material piece that I need for that, and they don't have it anymore. Nobody on the East Coast has it, and they don't know when they're getting it.
How much time lapsed from the time you spoke to them to the time?
A week.
Wow, right? That fast.
So, yeah. So as far as the pricing goes, I just heard from one of my suppliers last week that they said, "Hey, listen, I'm just giving you a heads up. The lumber prices are going up 30 to 40% in the next 2 months." Like when the pandemic first hit, the price of certain materials were scarce, like pressure treated, and then the cost of like OSB plywood, the flake board plywood that we use lots of, that went from $8 a sheet to $60 a sheet. Now it's down to about 18 to 20 right now, but they said all those prices are going right back up again. And the weird thing, Navid, is that the supply chain is getting worse, not better. And that's, so explain that
to me. Let's expand on that. When you say the supply chain is getting worse.
Well, so in the beginning, when it was like lumber, because the mills shut down, everybody shut down. So you can understand that, right? And so then we came out of that, and then they were like, wait, it's going to be hard to get vinyl siding and vinyl products, and anyway, I'm just telling you from my experience. All these different things, it's getting worse, and they're telling us it's going to be worse foreseeably for the foreseeable future. I don't understand why it is, but it is. Like drip edge aluminum products you're having trouble getting them. Then they were having trouble getting cardboard to package the stuff in. So I don't know. I don't know how to have the answer. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing.
No, and that's fine. I mean, obviously, I wish all of us had the answers, right?
Yeah.
that we can get some solutions going here.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you talk about that, and I tell people this is not. I used to say this is similar, when the pandemic first hit, prior to the pandemic, we would have those network meetings and
Right.
talks in Berks County. That I would say, well, when the crash comes and stuff like that, it's going to be very similar to the 2008. But now I've switched that stance since
Mm.
COVID hit with the pricing of materials, because it's now this kind of reminds me of, I'm going to date myself here, of the Gulf War,
Mm.
right? Where the price of gas used to be like, let's just say $1 a gallon. Then it went
Yeah.
up to $4 a gallon.
Right.
And then it went down. Everybody was happy, but it was still 200% more than what it was in
Yes.
its original price. So now
Right.
everyone's like, oh, the price is up or is down. No, it's still up.
Yeah.
It's still high. It's not,
Yeah.
it went from, a dollar a sheet to $20 a sheet. Now it's $10 a
Yeah.
sheet. So
Right.
yes, it's cheaper than $20, but it still used to be a buck, or what, I'm just throwing
Yes.
numbers out there. But,
Right.
and I think some people forget that. And it's almost, and not to get, so we don't do politics or religion here, anything
Right.
like that,
No problem.
but not to get political. It's just that you just got to wonder, when you see these prices and stuff like that, you're like, what the hell? Like, how did we get here? And how do you justify staying here?
Yeah.
And now,
Yeah.
and so having said that, and you had said, well, we talked before the show began, was that you're switching your hat from a contracting hat to a investor hat,
Yeah.
buying, whether it be flipping real estate or being a landlord.
Right.
Um, can you talk about that? What's the shift? If someone's listening to this right now, and if it's a general contractor or someone's thinking, what is the shift mentally you needed to do? Or was there any shift to go from a GC hat to a flipper hat?
So I have to go back a little further to give you a brief
Okay.
history. In the late 90s, early 2000s, I started buying real estate. And at the time, I'm young then. I'm probably 21, 22,
Okay.
25, I think 25 maybe. And I was like, man, I want to get 100 units. I didn't know anything. I knew nothing about REI groups. I knew nothing, but I knew I love real estate. So I started looking at places, and I ended up accumulating about 25 doors.
Okay.
And at the time, my kids were young. I have 5 young kids, and I'm running my construction company, and I'm doing everything, maintenance, management on all these properties. And I burned out. So I'm like, screw it. I'm selling these. I have a lot of equity in them, so I'm selling them and cashing out. Sold them all in 2005 and six, and didn't realize that was a great time to sell. But it ended up, hindsight is 2020, right?
Yeah, of
But
course.
when I tell people now, they're like, "Oh man, you timed that right." I'm like, "No, it had nothing to do with me.
Okay.
I just got out at the right time." But and then I didn't buy anything for a while. I was like, "Nope, I'm done with that." Did that, and moved on. Concentrated on my construction business and stuff. And then I started. A friend of mine had a bunch of places in Reading, and he's like, "Hey, you should buy in Reading. You should buy in Reading." And for people outside of Reading, typically, especially in the neighboring counties, there or areas, they're like, "Oh man, why would you buy in Reading? Don't
Yeah,
buy in
yeah.
Reading." So I got involved with a RIA group
Mhm.
in Reading, and for like a year, and I studied the market and stuff. Anyway, I bought one. I bought a row home in 2010 and another in 2012, and I was like, "That's fine. That's good for me." So I stumbled onto an Berks REI group and um, started meeting people there and getting my taste back for real estate. And I'm thinking, well, now's a good time because my kids are grown; they don't need me as much, and I have more time and to do that. And so I decided. I took a few months to decide that, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to start buying. And so, I mean, one of the things I've done really well, Naveed, not by I want to say it was really planned out, but it wasn't. But I'm just really good at networking, and I spend lots of time networking. I don't like to. I don't send out mailers or anything like that. I just network with people and talk to people about what I do and what I want to do. And so I started putting it out there. Hey, I'm looking for properties, and next thing you know, I just started buying them. So the reason for it is why I wanted to buy properties is because I know it's a good strategy for long-term wealth and I've got off the job, working on the job and contracting probably 8 years ago. So I had scaled it that way, and I have guys working for me. So I'm like, well, I could buy real estate and manage that as well. So that's how I got into it. And
Okay.
then, so in the last 3 years, we bought like 33 properties. 13 of them we flipped. About half of those were with other partners.
Okay.
So that's kind of where the mental shift is. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, so I have this can like 18, 20 units. And I guess not, I don't know how to say this except I'm a little bored. And so like I need the next challenge. Like, and I just had a meeting this morning with my son. Well, my oldest son works for me and runs the construction part of it.
Okay.
And I'm handing more and more things over to him. And I was just telling me like now I don't know what the next step is, but I know I'm making it. Like
Yeah.
maybe it's going to be to find more smaller multifamily stuff. Maybe it's syndications. I don't know.
Yeah, I think everybody, it's whether you have a W-2 or you work for yourself, there's always an evolution right within
Yeah,
ourselves. Like if you have a W-2 job, you go and we'll just use a bank. You're a bank teller, then you become the head teller, the supervising teller, the branch
yeah,
manager, or whatever, right? You get
yeah.
bored, you get tired. You're like, hey, I've
Right.
done this, I've mastered it. I got to
Yeah,
do something new. And it's no different when you're independent contractor,
yeah,
right? After a while, you can buy, and I know exactly what you're talking about, right? You can buy so many small homes and flip them and rent them. Then it's like, I want a multi. Then you get a two
yeah,
unit, 3 unit. Then you're like,
yeah,
let me get a 5 unit. And then your
yeah,
five becomes a 10, then you're like, okay, then
yeah.
you get a taste for it. And I think it's a learning process for everybody. And I think this is why I like having these interviews because I think comments like that, it's depending who you are, you can say, well, that's not me. That's Troy. That's his story. That's how he learns,
Hmm.
or he got lucky, or
Yeah,
whatever. That's not the case. What you're saying is, hey, listen, I don't want to just settle for settling. Like I have
right.
this in front of me. I have the opportunity. I have the
Yeah,
energy. I've got the manpower. In your case, 5 kids. Is that what you said?
yeah, hmm,
God bless you.
yeah.
5 children. And that's great that you can hand off, to at least your oldest some of the responsibilities, which
Right,
frees up time. And because we can't buy more time, we can just
yeah,
leverage it,
right.
right? Which is exactly what you're doing. You're saying, okay,
Hmm.
I have this craft, I've mastered this craft. I'm now going to show my son how to go ahead and take it over.
Sure.
And that's going to free up some of this
Yeah,
additional time. Now, what do I do with that time?
right, right.
Um, so let's talk about that, right? So let's talk about leveraging of your time in that mental space. And here's what I mean. A lot of times people will say, all right, well, I have nothing to do. I'll just sit here and pop a TV on. I'll binge watch.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever.
Hmm.
What makes Troy say, what's next? Like, what makes you tick to saying, okay, I can potentially retire or just take it easy and just let the kids handle it? Or what makes you saying, what's on my plate? What do I want to put on my plate?
Yeah. So I mean, I think because I've been in business so long, like I started when I was 21. So I've only ever worked for other people a couple years before that, like since I was 14. But like, so I'm always I like to be productive, right?
Okay.
Like for me, I don't like to sleep in the morning. I don't think, oh man, I can sleep in. I don't like to sleep in. I like to sleep, but I don't need a lot of sleep. And I don't, I once I'm like, I need like maybe 6 hours max. That's just me.
Has
Um,
always been like that? Like even when you were a little
yes. I
kid?
mean,
Okay.
yes. 4 hours, I can get easy by on four. And now, if I get tired later, I can always take a nap, right? But I don't do that a lot. I mean, so, so I guess, and the whole idea of retirement to me is like I'm not going to retirement to me is just doing a little bit more of what I want to do other than the stuff that I'm productive at. Like
Amen.
I enjoy my work. I enjoy my responsibilities. Not all the time, right? I don't like when Sunday I got two calls for two refrigerators that aren't working. And my thought was, I don't want to be receiving these calls. I want that to be someone else's responsibility,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So that will, and because if that is someone else's responsibility, again, I can focus on something else. One of the reasons I don't want to do more maybe flips and stuff is because I can do them and make money, but that will take my energy and time away from focusing on something bigger that I want. So I'm not sure if that's answering your question, but the what makes me want to do that?
Yeah, what makes you take that I mean, you've partly answered it. Yeah, you're not. You wake up early, so in my mind or in my experience, anybody who wakes up early on a consistent basis without an alarm is always somebody who's hungry,
Yeah,
who's usually never satisfied with just that. Not to a point
yeah,
where you burn yourself out, but just to
right,
a point you're like, okay, I know I have more left in the tank. Let me
yeah,
utilize that.
right. I can't like I don't. I have. I'm also the person, type of person who I like to get up early, maybe because I like to be productive. And to me, a good day starts early because
Yeah.
I get a bad day starts late. If I get up late, I'm miserable all
Now
day.
define late. What's late?
Okay, so all right, so now I've had some health issues and stuff too, which has kind of dictated some of this. But
Okay.
I typically like to be in bed by 10 or 11,
Okay.
and then I get up. I will if I go to bed at 9. Let's say today I go to bed at 9. I'm up by 2 o'clock, and I can't do that. So I'm like, that's way too early.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll stay up. I'll stay up till 10 to 11, and then I wake up at 4 to 5.
Okay.
Right. So ideally in my like so in the wintertime here I'll be going to I go to the gym more. So I'll get up around 4 so that I can be there and get it done with. And but if I don't, my brain functions really high in the morning, so I can get lots of paperwork done in the morning.
Yeah.
And that sets me out mentally for the rest of the day
No,
in a
I
good way.
so and I'm glad you said that. Okay, so you're the every single guest has said about waking up in the morning, early or early morning, pre-productive. Every guest.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, and that's your common denominator.
Hmm.
Of those who want to say, but you're the first guest who said about how your production with paperwork is in the morning.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think people understand. Like just this morning, I woke up yesterday. I went to the PO box, got a stack of mail like this. I hadn't gone a couple of days, wasn't feeling well. I finally went back and I had a stack. And then I woke up this morning, and the first thing I did after I cranked on my workout was get that paperwork and scan
Yeah.
this in, shred this, deposit this, whatever it was,
Yeah.
And it just that
Right.
morning. And every time I did one bit of paperwork that I put from this pile to this pile, I felt like more and more energized
Yeah.
and more better, right? And you
Yes.
get that. And
Yes,
not
totally.
it's just like scan this bookkeeper, scan this account. Like you're just like, oh, and you just
Yes.
everything is, and you're like, bring it on, bring it
Yeah.
on. Everything that's it, right?
Then, because when you get that stuff out of the way, then you feel like you can really conquer the rest of the day, and
Yes.
like you're already ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that common denominator of feeling, one of feeling that accomplishment and get make things happen. That's probably one of my favorite sayings is make it happen.
Yeah.
Like just find that solve the issue, solve the problem, make it happen. And so I don't like when people say I don't have enough time. I don't like when people say that because I'm like, are we all the same amount of time? You should really say that's just not a priority because we
Yes.
spend time on what we prioritize. And so if you're saying, well, I don't have time for that, you're really saying it's not a priority. But it sounds better when you say I don't have time for it because I'm
Yeah,
with
because
you.
who, God forbid, we held ourselves accountable for
Yeah.
anything, right? 'Cause that's
Right.
when you're saying
Exactly.
it's not a priority, you're just saying, oh, okay, so. And I have this discussion 10 times a day with people who I get, just like I'm sure like you and people that we know in our same circle.
Mhm.
Can you help me? Can you show me? Can you coach me? Can you do this? Yeah,
Right.
sure. Here's, oh, I'm just, oh, I don't got, oh, this doesn't work. So you don't have time for your success. Okay. Because that's what you're saying. You don't have time to invest into yourself.
Yeah.
Um, but it does take a certain mindset. I mean, let's
Yeah.
be honest, it does take a certain mindset. So you have made a
And
comment.
I do have a caveat
Yeah,
to
sure,
this.
sure.
There are some people who just aren't morning people, and they function better at night. I don't know if that's the norm, but I think lots of successful people do get up early, but there are successful people who don't get up nearly as early as me, but they're still successful. But they're also more productive later on in the afternoon or night. Where,
Yes.
I mean, for me, I don't like it when it's like 7 and I'm like ready for bed. I'm not functioning highly enough mentally to do more paperwork. So
Yeah.
at this, but so I have to figure that out. I'm thinking about maybe working out in that time or something. But because what happens is I'll sit down and start eating chips or something. So that's
I got you. So,
bad.
so side note, you just said that I just literally saw a video, and it talked about working out in the morning versus the evening. And
Yeah.
scientifically speaking, you're better off working out in the evening.
Really?
Yes, scientifically speaking. And they're saying this is
Okay.
what your body's core temperature is more warm.
Hmm.
And because it's warm, it's relaxed, and you reduce what, how are you going to phrase it? You reduce the likelihood of injury,
Okay.
because your muscles are stretched. They've been you're well hydrated. Number one, right? Because think about, if you're sleeping, you're fasting, which is why your first meal of the day is breakfast. You're breaking
Yeah.
your fast, right?
Hmm.
But throughout the day, you're hydrated, you're mobile, so your muscles are loose, they're relaxed, your core temperature's gone up, and so it is, from a scientific standpoint, better for you to work out in the evening from that regards there. Um, Having said that, I can't, because
Yeah.
I used to do it at 9 o'clock. I figured, eat
Ooh,
dinner, spend family time. I'll go to the gym
yeah.
in the evening.
Yeah.
But I mean, we live on
It's
the East
hard.
Coast. It's
Yeah.
cold, man.
Yeah.
It's
And
cold, and
dark.
daylight savings time hit, and
Yeah.
come 4:59, it's bright. 5 o'clock hits, boom, it's
I
pitch black out there.
yeah.
So I personally don't like that. Having the flip side of that, like I said, trying a boat. I'm a 4:30 guy. I'm similar to you. I'm sure I can go to bed at 7 p.m., but come 1:30 in the morning or 2 o'clock, I'm gonna be wide awake,
Yes.
and then I'm
Same. Yeah.
shot. So I'm a 10 o'clock guy, 10
Yeah.
p.m., 4:30 in the morning.
Yep.
That my 6.5 hours, I'm fine with that. But I
Yes.
get it. If it's 6:37 a.m. and I'm just like, holy crap, the day's wasted, at that point
Right.
in time. So I,
Yeah.
I understand that. Um, so you have mentioned you started working at the young age of 14, which I think most people in our generation, you can get your workers permit at 14. You can work and
Yeah.
do a lot of
Right. Yeah.
things.
Hmm.
Um, but you worked for yourself starting at 19. Is that
21.
21? Okay. So can you talk about that transition of working for somebody else to then
Yeah.
at a very young age working for yourself?
Yeah. So the first job I had was I worked at like a flea market. Then I worked for most of my like probably from 10th, 11th, 12th grade. I worked at a tree nursery and I worked
Okay.
every day after school and then on weekends. So I was working like 25 hours a week during school, which and then all in the summer. But then I started working construction out of high school and worked for a couple different guys and one a bigger company and didn't learn as much. But then I worked for this one guy who was just like solo, and I learned a lot from him.
Okay.
But then he was moving to Western PA, and I was like, okay, so I got to do something. So I decided to. I thought, well, I'm going to go in my own business. I had no business at
Starting
nineteen,
your business.
21. Yeah, I had no business. I mean, I had too much confidence and I really shouldn't have, but I was like, I'm gonna do this. And I felt like I should do it. And so I started putting it out there that I was gonna be starting in the spring, like in May or whatever. And I initially I get all kinds of responses. People, oh yeah, I want you to do this, I want you to do this. So I was looking at these jobs, giving pricing and stuff. And I I thought I had about 3 or 4 weeks lined up when I was going to start.
Okay.
By the time I ended up starting, I only had 3 days lined up. Everybody else bailed out.
Ah,
And I got that 3 days worth of work done in 2 days. So I had nothing after that. And I didn't have any work for about a week. And then I got a roof job. And then I would say for the first year, probably 2 years, there were times I didn't know what I was doing from one day to the next, and I'd be on the phone at night because we didn't have cell phones then. So I'd be on the phone at night calling up other contractors, um, landscapers, and be like, "Hey, do you need help tomorrow? Can I help you?" So I did anything and everything for those first year or two till I really gained some traction because at that age and at that time I was a skinny little baby faced kid, and I'd walk into somebody's house and I could see the fear in their eyes, like this guy's gonna tear my house apart and put this
Hmm.
addition on there. And so that was a huge struggle, but I kept at it and took little jobs and stuff and got bigger and bigger jobs. And as I got more experience, one of the ways you're probably thinking 21 years old, how much did you even know then, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great question. Now I did learn. I've always been a hands-on kind of person. When in high school and stuff, I took all the shop classes and stuff. We were given lots of responsibilities at home,
Okay.
working on stuff. Um, and then, and I had 2 years experience in the field, which is not much. But what I would do was, and my philosophy was, all right. So, like, say somebody called me, hey, do you do rubber roofing? And can you give me a price on this? I'd be like, sure. So I would talk to other contractors that I knew, and I basically they'd help me price it, and then I would hire them, and I would learn from them if I didn't know how to do it. So I learned a lot
Okay.
that way. So even then, I was of a mindset of managing and that kind of thing. But for whatever, man, 15 years or whatever. I mean, I was hands on and doing it. And but so it was an adjustment, and it's always like you said before, like being evolving.
Hmm.
Business always evolves, and
Yeah,
like when
absolutely.
2008 came, I'm like, all of a sudden there's no work, like none. It just dropped off, and I traveled. I had the choice where, and I knew a lot of guys. They were like, well, there's no work. I'm staying at home. I'm like, I didn't want to get behind. So I traveled as far as Louisiana for work. I was on the road just taking whatever I could get. I worked in North Carolina for like 6 weeks and it was and for less money, but I was like, I'm not going to get behind. And I think that's one of the reasons we've had some success is just because like I feel like the harder the challenge, and I've always excelled under pressure.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I like about a new challenge because of the pressure of it. And that's when I produce when there's pressure. I think it's kind of normal for everybody.
Yeah.
Um,
So you give a whole bunch of good nuggets there, and I'm going to kind of take them apart.
okay.
So first thing you had said was um, you worked at a bigger company for a while, then you went to a small, like a one-man shop, but you
Yeah.
learned more from the one-man shop. Were
Oh
those two
gosh.
companies in the same industry?
Yeah. Right. They were
Okay.
both construction. Yeah.
All right. Now, what did you feel you should have learned or you could have learned at the bigger shop that you didn't?
Well, they were just, it was less personal. So like
Okay.
they were a company that we did a lot of framing. So I did learn a lot of about framing.
Okay.
But that was all we did. And so, but when I worked for the other guy, we did a variety of jobs. And so I learned a lot about just renovations. Like in the construction world, you have renovations and you have new construction, and they are so drastically different. I mean, new construction, people think, oh wow, it's the easiest thing in the world to do. Like new construction is a piece of cake. Renovating and putting on an addition and making it look like it was always there with a customer living in the house, like totally different. Much more difficult. So he spent lots of time teaching me, which is why I learned so much more. Whereas a bigger company is not as personal, right?
How much how much influence did working for that one gentleman have on you as far as from a work ethic standpoint?
It was huge. I mean, like I don't know. I worked for him for a year, and I learned, man. If I would have been at that other company for 10 years, I wouldn't learn as much as I learned in 1 year with this other guy.
Really, that big of a
Yeah.
difference?
Hmm.
Now you sound like somebody who has a great work ethic to begin with. Like you said, you went down south. You went,
Hmm.
when the market dried up for
Right.
your field. I don't. And how old were you at that time,
Uh, well,
roughly?
wait,
But
that was in 2008ish, so that would have been. I was roughly 35, 38. I guess it was 38. Yeah.
okay. Because I'm just trying to think, and I'm listening to you. You're telling your stories in your journey, and again, the waking up early. But it sounded like from a very very young age, somebody or something instilled a very strong work ethic into you.
Oh yeah, that's my mom and dad.
Okay, that's
So
I.
yeah.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get. I was trying to get on a roundabout way was because I don't hear many. So I'll back up. My father worked at a tire facility making truck tires,
Okay.
and he would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go to work, come home at 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And the house and the rule was on Saturdays and Sundays, though you could sleep into 8 o'clock and that was it. At
Yeah.
eight
Yeah.
o'clock, if you were not to bed, you had to get out. Even if there's nothing to
Yeah.
do, but there was always
Yeah.
something to do.
Yeah.
And he would get up at 4 o'clock on a school day. I would get up, have breakfast with him at 4 a.m. Now I'm like
Mm.
8 years old, 9 years old. Now I'm doing this. So
Yeah.
to me, that's how I was instilled. My mom was up,
Right.
my dad was up.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, could you kind of touch on to your upbringing with your
Yeah.
parents?
Sure.
Okay.
So my dad worked at a he was a lab technician testing plastics for a company in Pottstown.
Okay.
He did that. So it was a 9 to 5 job kind of. But he grew up with a strong work ethic, and he did everything around the house, like fix things, build things, and we were all given responsibilities. My mom was a school bus driver for 43 years,
God bless
and
her. Holy
yeah,
crap.
and she was. I mean, anybody that knows my mom, she's 5'2", and she's never been afraid of anyone in her life.
There
Like
you go.
actually, a few years ago, I was thinking like, man, what is up? Like, how do I explain my mom? And I'm like, she's never been intimidated by anybody. Like, never. It's
She's
just
a
weird.
woman. That's how you
Yeah.
explain her. She's a woman.
So I'll give you this little story, and she denies all this stuff, but like if you were to hear this, she would be like, "Oh, Troy, you tell these stories, but believe me, I remember them." And so like in the summertime, like we were allowed to sleep into a certain time, but then she came in because we either had windows to paint or scrape, something. There were jobs to do, and she also you weren't allowed to have food in your bedroom. Okay, so all I remember one morning is I wake up because she had found a glass of milk that had been there for about a week next to like on my dresser, like
Oh.
something. So it was like solid partially, right? So guess what happened to that milk? She throws that right in my face in bed. Like she's like, "You're not like," and then of course I had to clean all that. That's how she was. She was no joke. Like and so if we were getting in a fight with our siblings, you'd get the grocery bags, you'd be out in the flower bed, and you'd have to fill that grocery bag up with weeds, and that was your punishment. So she got
Nice.
yeah, so she was like, she grew up in Pottstown as well, and yeah, she was just they instilled that work ethic in us, and I think if there's anything that I've given to my kids, it's a strong work ethic, and you know, I just think like they're going to be successful no matter what they do in life because
Mm,
they know how to work, and I see it in them, and it's pretty cool. Like my oldest daughter was working. Well, so she went to school, like college, and after her second year at this college, they hired her to run their transportation department. Like she
nice.
was in charge of a bunch of guys, and she would call me sometimes and be like, "Dad, I'm just so sick of these guys whining that their job is so hard." She's like, "How hard is it to drive a freaking van?" Like, you know, so, but she was instilled with like being responsible and working, and so, yeah, I think I thank my parents for that.
Okay.
It's not something that I really reflect on much, but I'm like, I know where I get it from. Like they are
Yeah.
hardworking people, and so
Yeah.
that's important.
No, it is. And I'm always interested in hearing, like, it's like people ask you, what's your why? What's your why? Why do
Yeah,
you do what you do and stuff like that? And I've always said it, if your why is strong and if it's not full of vanity, your why will sustain itself.
yeah,
And I've always found it interesting to hear about people's work ethic and why they work so
yeah,
hard on certain things. Like I know a lot of people work out of fear. Like they don't want to go back to being poor, or they don't want
right,
to go back to being in a bad relationship, or they don't
Yeah.
want to go back to the factory. They don't want to go back to jail,
Right.
whatever it may be. So you hear these stories and stuff like that. And uh, I love it personally when I hear a story like yours. So such a young age, you had that support, you had that mind
Yeah.
shift and stuff like that, that mindset, I should say, which is very rare. It's sad, but I think,
Mm.
again, dating myself here, there just seems to be like a generation that's been just, there's like a gap, right? Where we
Right.
all, you were just taught to wake up early, work hard, do this and do that, and
Yeah.
everything's going to be fine. Where now it's, not that you don't have to work hard, and you still do, but so I was at my son's school and I spoke to his one class and I said, this is probably the greatest generation we have because you guys have so much data or so much access to data that you can do a lot of the stuff that we did without having to do a lot of searching around for it. But on the flip side, because you have so much access to data, so much access that it kind of paralyzes you, right?
True. Yeah.
Right, it does. I mean, these things are powerful, powerful tools.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and I told the kids, I said, you can either it can make you broke or it can make you rich. It's up to you however you want to do it, But but I do miss personally, I do miss the days of just good old fashioned grinding and hard work.
Right.
Just the old fashioned stuff. And nothing against the people who are banging out behind keyboards and computers and
Yeah.
using their minds and scrap. Nothing against that because those are the people who I rely on to make my business run smoothly, right? That
Yeah.
background stuff.
Sure.
Um, but it's nice to talk to someone like you who gets it, and in that regards there and understands it. But it's also nice to see somebody who hasn't just been stuck saying, well, this is what it was when I was growing up. It's just
Yeah.
ridiculous now,
Right.
because that can also hinder you, of course,
Yeah. I mean, listen, it was a huge deal for me to go from not the mental shift of saying I'm not going to work on the job anymore. Like, and I can't tell you how much criticism I got from other people in my industry who that's how they do it in Berks County. You work on the job,
yeah.
maybe you get another guy. And I remember people saying, well, how do you make money if you're not on the job? Right. And I've
Yeah.
had other contractors who are now older than me who have said to me, you know what? And they're still working on the job and they can't do anything else because they haven't scaled their business at all.
Yep.
And they say, I wish I would have done things a little differently. Like I don't have a business I can sell because the business is me, right?
Yep.
And I don't make money unless I'm there. So,
There you go.
that's that was a huge shift. And I know people were like, oh, Troy's not working on a job anymore. He's just getting other guys to do it. Like that's some kind of a bad thing. But
But that's the mindset. That's the
right.
mentality of a lot of, not just that county, a lot of counties. And that's every industry, yours, mine. I mean, people ask, how do you don't, I never see your sign out on the listing. I don't never see your sign on the, I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like, but I've got a dozen other agents who sell my properties for me, stuff like that. But you're a realtor yourself, sell it yourself. What for?
Yeah.
Why? When I have a real estate agent in my office, in my brokerage, who could use the money, use the experience, give them a couple of bucks, nothing wrong with that. Now my time is not occupied in taking phone calls and asking questions about the listing. Let them do that.
Yeah. You
One
can do
people,
something else.
yeah, exactly. Some people say, well, that's an extra, $3,000 that you could be saving. No, that's an investment. That's
Yeah.
how I look at it. By me not taking that hypothetical $3,000 in commission, I can be making three, four, five times that because my time's been freed up somewhere else. But
Right.
that's a mentality that people have to have. But that's, again, it's kudos to you for not although you live where you live, not living in the mindset of that location as well.
Yeah. Right.
Of some of the older ones there. But and I think I think it's every city has that, or every industry, I should say, has that. It's how we handle it, which and obviously is, like talking to you and listening to your story, you handled it very well. And also kudos to you not caving in, saying, hey, why are you doing this? None of us are. You
Yeah.
shouldn't be doing it this way. You easily could have said, okay, all right, let me not rock the boat. But
Right.
you know your truth, you know what you wanted to do.
Right.
Having said all that, your kids, are they hey, dad, teach me? Are they on the path that, uh, to work with you, take over, or they
Okay.
do each do their own things?
Right. So my oldest son, Brandon, right? I like this. I'll just say that.
Well, yeah, it's your son. So
So yeah. So like I said, he's been working with me for probably 10 years. He is his first property he bought was a 3 unit in Pottstown, like
nice.
just a couple of years ago. So they lived in one and rented out the other two. Then I found him an off market deal in Boyertown and he bought that. And so now and he got such a even in this market, he paid 128 and it appraised at 173. I
There
mean,
you
can you believe
go.
that? Yeah, so
Nice.
instant equity. And the 3 unit now, he went from he paid 140, it's worth around 220 to 240 already, you know.
Nice
So
job.
he's going to grow. We were just talking about this morning, so it's interesting that you say that, but ask about it. But yeah, he's not he's going to grow slowly. Whereas for me, I've been growing fast because I have less time, right? So I'm
Mm.
accelerating, and it's also more my personality. But so he's doing that. He will take over, and he does run most of the construction part, and he oversees a lot of our flips and is beginning really really good at managing those things and the people. So yeah, he's traveling down that road. Um, so my daughter, they haven't bought anything yet, but they will. Her husband's an insurance agent, and then so then my middle son, he works for a hardscaping company, and they bought their first house about a year ago, and he is chomping at the bit to find a real piece of real estate. So they're doing really well, saving their money, paying off bills, and so yeah, he will definitely be have some real estate. Um, and who knows long term what he's going to do with his work career, but he's working hard. And uh, the other two, one's in college yet, the other both are in college.
Okay.
So who knows what's going to happen with that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but that's good though that at least those who are out of college have some kind of a path and that they're interested. I think it's always nice to have some kind of a family business.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
and
always cool. I mean, if not, that's fine. It's just cooler
yeah.
if they are part of it.
And I'm not a micromanager, so like I'm actually the opposite. Like I'm very much hands off. Like with my kids, when one of the things I did was like when I give them jobs and responsibilities around the house, I would be like, figure it out. Like where when I remember I bought them two dirt bikes, and I'm not mechanically minded at all, and and then would break down. I'd be like, okay, what do you want me to do? I don't fix it, figure it out. And so they've been forced to figure stuff out, and I think it's kind of served them well because they figure stuff out like on the job or in life. They I mean they can come to me, but like I feel like I've given them the tools to be successful when
Yeah.
it comes to that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's
Most of
easy.
like, construction, you have to figure stuff out. You dig into something, all of a sudden you're at a crossroads. Like, wait, didn't expect this. Now, how do you figure it out? So, yeah,
Yeah, and it's if it's not physical, it's mental, right? You always have to
yeah,
figure something out. Some way,
right,
somehow,
yeah,
whether it's you dealing with a complicated seller or a difficult
yes.
seller or buyer or whatever, you got to just figure stuff out. That's just
Don't you feel like that's? I feel like that's my job is figuring things out and solving problems,
oh,
like
hands down. I tell
all the
my
time, right?
all the time. I listen when we go look at these houses for sale. I tell my agents and my team members, listen, when you go in, you don't ask, well, how much you want to sell it for. You ask them, what is it you like to see done? How
Mhm.
can we help you out?
Yeah,
If you go in with that intent, if you go in with the intent of how can I help you out, sometimes they don't want it sold. That maybe they think they have to get it sold because of the
right.
damage. But you know what? I know a contractor. Call Troy up. He's a good contractor.
Yeah,
Fix it. And if you go in with that purity, basically saying, I just want to help you out. If that means us buying it, great. If
right.
that means, look, it was my dad's shop, he really wants to keep it, but it's
Yeah,
falling apart. Well, guess what? Maybe we can put you with the HELOC. Maybe we can put you in the loan
yeah,
officer and get the pieces for them. It is what it is.
yeah.
But you're right.
So
We're problem solvers all day, every day.
Yeah. And I
mentally or
mean,
physically.
the first property I ever bought was in 1996. Right.
Okay.
Didn't even own my own home. We were renting. I went to look at this 2 unit. It was two half doubles on 3 acres. The guy was 80. He lived there his whole life. And I'm walking around this place and I'm like, I said, hey, if I buy this place, what are you going to do? And he looked at me and goes, I don't know, but I just can't take care of it anymore. That night, the realtor called me and she said, hey, there's two or three other offers coming in. If you want an offer, you better throw it in there. And I said, well, you might think this is weird. I said, but I don't make quick decisions. And if I'm meant to have that, I'm going to have it no matter how many. And she was quiet on the phone. 2 or 3 days later, she calls me back and she says, well, I sat down with Paul at his kitchen table, showed him the other offers. He looked at me and he said, I want to sell it to Troy.
Nice. There you
So
go.
listen, so what I did was he owner financed it and I let him, I bought it from him and he stayed there and he got to live there the rest of his life. And let me tell you, the most value I got out of that, I can't tell you how many conversations I had with him on his porch, talking about his life, listening to him, the stories about World War II that he was in. He was in the Battle of the Bulge. Like,
Whoa.
talk about value. I mean, that's what I don't think about that property and think, oh, I made this much money.
Yeah.
I remember that property and I remember him. And I'm so glad I got to be a part and I was able to buy that place and let him live there the rest of his life. Like,
That is awesome.
it was pretty cool.
That's a
So that was
great
my
story.
introduction to real estate.
That's a hell of an introduction.
Yeah,
Not just from so many lessons, right? Giving good, paying it forward,
yeah,
meeting somebody who served our country.
yeah.
From finance, owner finance. There's just so many different
Right.
little tidbits you can get there. Wow, that's a really, really good
Yeah.
story,
I
man.
mean, the only thing annoying about it was his dog. That freaking dog, I could have. Yeah, it was a yapper. And he was partially deaf, so he didn't realize how loud that dog was.
Okay. I was, it didn't bother him, but yeah, if he's
No,
partially
no,
deaf, it's a
it
yapper,
bothered
then
everybody
okay.
else. Yeah, no,
Oh
no,
my
that
gosh.
that and that's the thing that I like about business and real estate is like I love meeting new people. I love seeing new places. I love hearing people's stories about how their life. And so, I mean, that place alone, like he grew up there from a kid. Like they used to smoke the meat out back and hang it in the attic. Like he
Wow.
told all these stories, and he would say like they'd hang this half of a beef up there, and it would be covered with white mold. I'm like, man, how many times do you get sick? Oh no, you just scrape it off and throw it in the pan, and um,
Oh
just
my
these stories.
gosh.
Yeah, but that's how they live.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah,
pla-
yeah.
that place had a hand dug well, 25 feet deep, that served both of those houses. That's how it supplied the water to that house.
Whoa.
Yeah, you could see it. Like it was like 4 feet around stone,
Yeah,
and you look down in that, and
that
he's
was
like,
it.
for those all the years he lived there, it never ran dry. And
There you go.
tested
There
the
you-
water; it was great water.
yeah, you gotta make sure that that's good.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, hey, listen, I'm gonna wrap it up here.
All right.
Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate
Sure.
it. Thanks for the
Great being here,
stories.
man.
I hope you had fun, man. So listen, everyone, this is again Troy Goode. I'm gonna say Good Contracting, but I know he's shifting his business over model to the investor stuff. Um, Hopefully we'll run each other, at settlement tables or something like that.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of go from there. And I'm looking forward to your next meeting. I got your email this morning.
Okay. Yeah.
I will respond to it and stuff like that. I was trying to think, okay, I love the format of it, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Is there a website, social media you want to
So I
let
would
people know
say
about?
if you want to follow us on Instagram at Good Contracting
Okay.
LLC, and then we're on Facebook too under Good Contracting. So yeah,
Okay, great.
follow there. We like you talking about the guys real estate group we're doing, and
Yep.
I too, yeah, the format is I like it random, not every it keeps it fresh, right?
It does. It's kind of like, you know what? I feel like having a meeting. Let's have a get together. It's
Yes.
like, yeah, I love it. When I saw the email I read, I was like, that's genius. I'm like, that's the best way to do it. Because you're right. Monthly meetings, kind of like,
It comes
it's
up all
this
the
month, I'll
same.
catch you next month. It's this month, I'll catch you next month. This way,
Yeah.
it's kind of like hey, I haven't been to one in a while. You know what? It's good that he's having one. Let's all get together. And it's not a meeting per se. It's just a little, it's a gathering. Everyone
Right.
just shoots the shit and have a
Yeah.
great time, go from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So cool. But thanks
Awesome.
again. Thank you, listeners, very much. Thank you, Troy, for your time. Each and every week, I end the show the same way, and that's just do right by the client. If you do right by the client, everything else will fall into place. And sometimes the client is you. Until next week, be good to each other, be good to yourselves, be safe out there, be careful out there. Take care of yourselves. See you guys.